Hey guys, Jim here with another video for you. This is 50 Years in Film, 2022. But before we begin, at the end of this video, if you like what you see, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, please leave comments below. Now, we're coming towards the end of our 50 Years in Film series here. 2022 is a very weak year. There's many reasons for that. A lot of movies were held back in the pipeline because of the COVID aftermath. And quite honestly, from going through the list of the movies from that year, there's really not that much. There are some titles that I don't own that are really good, but quite honestly, I haven't gotten around to buying them yet. And a couple other titles have never been released on any kind of physical media whatsoever. Those titles would be the Hellraiser reboot that was on Hulu, and more importantly, Barbarian, which was a horror film starring Bill Skarsgård and Justin Long. Did pretty well as a sleeper hit in the theaters that year, but on cable, in streaming, never got a physical release. But we are going to go ahead and we're going to go with what we have. Like I said, we've got 14 titles, assorted genres, and yeah, we still have a lot of superhero films. I'm sorry. It's just, again, as I've done this series, I've realized that as the years have gone by, it's the last 15 years, and it's directly because of the MCU, I'm sure, but everything is IP and superhero heavy. And a lot of those films I purchased mainly because of my grandson at the time. He was a superhero kid. Even he's burned out. So we're just going to push right through. So here we go. We're going to start off with animation. The first one on the list is Minions: The Rise of Gru. This was the sequel to the original Minions movie, of course. There's the theatrical one sheet. And it basically tells the story of how the Minions got together with Gru. And again, it features the voice of Steve Carell. But added to the mix this time, they got Lucy Lawless, Dolph Lundgren, Julie Andrews. Yeah, this is a cute movie. The other animated film on this list is the Bob's Burgers movie. This is based on the Fox network series Bob's Burgers, of course. And apparently this movie was in development for about 5 or 6 years. And it's okay. It's not great. I wouldn't put it in the same league as the Simpsons movie or the South Park movie, but it is a fun film. I've got one comedy on the list, and unfortunately, it's not very funny. Clerks 3, written and directed by Kevin Smith, and starring Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Jason Mewes, and Kevin Smith. This was the third film in the Clerks saga. As I covered in my ranking the Kevin Smith videos, I am not a huge fan of this movie. I don't hate this movie. I certainly do not like it. It's a very depressing film. It's a very sad film. And quite honestly, most of the jokes are recycled from the first two films. There are a few moments in this film that I really do like, and I like the idea behind it. I understand why Kevin Smith did this, but at the same time, this movie really doesn't need to exist. I watched the other Clerks movies multiple times. I've only watched this movie once, and that was the day I bought it. Okay, now we're into the superheroes, and they're all sequels or reboots. The first, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Benedict Wong, and what's her face? Jesus, here we go again. Elizabeth Olsen, is the Scarlet Witch. Directed by Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi hadn't done a superhero film since Spider-Man 3, of course. He was originally not supposed to be the director of this film. Originally, it was supposed to be Scott Derrickson, who directed the first film. And during pre-production, they had a difference of opinion of how the movie was supposed to go, so they changed directors. And Sam Raimi was given a deadline that he had to hit, and all things considered, this movie's okay. It's not great. Some of the effects aren't great. And quite honestly, this is about the time that Disney switched over to Disney Plus with their streaming services with all these Marvel spin-off series. WandaVision was the first. And quite honestly, if you've never seen WandaVision, this movie would confuse the hell out of you. And then we've got Thor, Love and Thunder. Directed by Taika Waititi and starring Chris Hemsworth, Christian Bale, Natalie Portman. This movie sucks. This is probably my least favorite MCU film. For years, it was Iron Man 2. I think I hate this movie even more. Huge disappointment after Ragnarok. Don't be surprised if this one shows up on the Hall of Shame video. And then we've got Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Unfortunately, this one does not star Chadwick Boseman, who passed away tragically. And this movie's fine. It is what it is. But it's not the same as Black Panther. And I don't know. I did not connect to this movie the way I thought I would. It's not a bad movie. I don't mean to make it sound like it is. It's not a bad movie. It's a very well-made movie, well acted. It just didn't grab me the way that Black Panther did. The most surprising superhero film, for me anyways, that year was The Batman. Directed by Matt Reeves. Starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, Peter Skarsgård, Andy Serkis. This movie, believe it or not, I think is the best Batman-related movie since The Dark Knight. I was shocked how much I enjoyed this movie. It's, again, I don't think it's a great film. It's a very good one, and it's dark. The Riddler in this movie is just as dark as Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. There's a scene in this movie that I thought I was watching Silence of the Lambs. Colin Farrell, he's underused in this movie as the Penguin. I know he's got a spin-off series coming on HBO Max. I am going to be interested in seeing that. And Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. She's fine. There's nothing wrong with her performance. This is about Riddler and Pattinson as Batman. And I gotta admit, Pattinson does the role for what he's supposed to do quite well. I really like this movie. That's it for the superheroes, guys. Yay! Okay, I didn't know we're starting to go towards the horror-related stuff, but I didn't really know where to put a couple of these. So we're going to start off with this one. The Menu. Starring Ralph Fiennes, Anna Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, John Leguizamo, and Judith Light. Directed by Mark Malo? I'm not sure. The subject matter of this movie could definitely classify it as a horror film, but to me, this is a pitch dark comedy. It is extremely black, and it is extremely funny comedy. I love this movie. Ralph Fiennes is terrific in this film, as is the rest of the cast, but he definitely stands out. I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. And we've got the weirdest one out of all of them, without a doubt. What else is new? David Cronenberg, Crimes of the Future. Starring Viggo Mortensen, Lea Seydoux, Kristen Stewart, and Vincent Cassel. This is a weird movie, man. It's very graphic. It's very disturbing in spots. It's not scary. It's just very weird. I would not know how to recommend this movie other than the fact that unless you're a Cronenberg fan, you probably won't enjoy this movie. But if you are a Cronenberg fan and you haven't seen this movie, it's right up your alley. It reminds me a lot of his earlier work, especially films like Existenz and to a lesser degree Videodrome. But Crimes of the Future, it's a bizarre, wild flick. Then we've got Prey. This is a prequel to the Predator series. Starring, and I got her name wrong once before, Amber Midthunder. I'm sorry. She is terrific in this movie. This is directed by Dan Trachtenberg. Excuse me. I did the ranking of the Predator and Alien movies a while back. This was my favorite Predator-related movie outside of the original. This movie is fantastic. I am so happy that this is released on Blu-ray here in the States. This was a Hulu property, like I said earlier. It is not available on Blu-ray in the UK, from what I understand, and for that, I am very sorry to my friends in the UK. I was very happy to get this. Now I really wish Hulu would release their version of Hellraiser, which also came out this year. Again, it's not a great movie, but it's probably the best one since the Hellraiser 2. So, yeah. Prey, a lot of fun. Now we're fully into horror with The Black Phone, starring Ethan Hawke. And this one was written by C. Robert Cargill and Scott Derrickson and directed by Scott Derrickson. And if those names sound familiar, it's because they are the people that did Sinister and the original Doctor Strange. Originally, like I said earlier, they were supposed to be working on Doctor Strange 2, had a difference of opinion with the MCU, left amicably from all accounts, and then adapted The Black Phone from a story from Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King. This movie became kind of a sleeper hit. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it got much, much better reviews than Doctor Strange. So, yeah, this movie's creepy. Ethan Hawke is great in this movie. I really enjoyed this movie. And then we've got, from my Jordan Peele collection, his third film, Nope. Starring Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, Stephen Yeun, and Michael Wincott. This is the commercials made it look like this was an alien movie or a UFO movie, and it is, and it's not. This is a very bizarre, fun movie, and it's all about the performances. Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya are awesome in this movie. You truly believe they're siblings. They have a great chemistry. And Michael Wincott, who has been one of my favorite character actors for years. He's from The Crow and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and a million other movies, Alien Resurrection. He gets a really nice, substantial role in this movie, and he makes the most of it. Yeah, I really like Nope. And then we've got Halloween Ends, the third and final installment in the new trilogy from David Gordon Green, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. I hate this movie. I do. I do not like this movie at all. I really liked the first one of this trilogy when it came out. And then upon repeated viewings, liked it less and less. The second movie, Halloween Kills, as I said in the previous video, I really admire the carnage factor in that movie, and the brutality. That movie feels like a slasher movie from the 70s, and 80s. It's just brutal. But that whole Evil Dies Tonight shit just grated on my last nerve. And then they continue that idea of that story to this film. And quite honestly, I don't know what the hell is going on in this film. It starts with a bang. The first scene in this movie is incredible. And I like the last scene of the movie. It's everything in between that I can't stand. Very disappointing film. But I saved this one for last. And this is not a horror movie. Top Gun Maverick. Starring Tom Cruise, Jennifer Connelly, Miles Teller, and a special appearance from Val Kilmer. Directed by Joseph Kosinski. This is the movie that saved Hollywood. Whether you like Tom Cruise or not, this is the movie that saved Hollywood and saved theater going in particular. Because this was the year that, again, after the pandemic, the theaters were back in full swing at this point. But with the possible exception of a couple of movies, nothing was really making money. And this movie was originally supposed to be released in 2020. And Tom Cruise refused to let Paramount release this on Paramount Plus or with a limited theatrical release because he knew he had a winner on his hands, I should say. And because Tom Cruise is such a powerful figure to Paramount in particular, but into Hollywood in general, they agreed and held this movie back until movie theaters were in full swing again and people were starting to get comfortable going back. But like I said, nothing really hit. And quite honestly, people thought that this movie would be a hit, but they had no idea how big. Top Gun was the highest grossing film of '86. This movie made 3 times as much in the first 2 months of release. This movie made over $600 million domestically and over $1 billion overseas for a combined total of well over $1 billion. And this was the first blockbuster after the COVID. A couple have followed, of course. Barbie, Oppenheimer, Avatar. But this is the one that paved the way for those movies, believe it or not. Like I said, whether you like Tom Cruise or not, he definitely paved the way for people to want to go back to the theater. And this movie's great. Top Gun, the original, I saw numerous times theatrically. It was a huge hit, like I said, and I loved it. But it has not aged well at all. And I'm not talking about the volleyball scene. I'm just talking about the movie in general. It hasn't aged well. This movie's terrific. It's superior in every way, and not just from the special effects, because one thing that does still hold up about that original film are the flight sequences. But the flight sequences in this movie are on a different level. And again, say what you will about Tom Cruise, nobody commits to his movies the way that he does. This movie sat in a can for 2 years. He could have gotten his money. He already, regardless. He didn't tell them to hold back because of any back-end deal. Again, he knew that this movie would bring butts back into the seats, and he was right. And that's how we're going to end 2022. I hope you enjoyed this. I know this video is not very good because, again, the movies aren't that good. And we're coming to the end of the road. We've got one more installment, 2023, which I will be releasing by the end of the weekend. But then we're going to mix things up a little bit. I am going to do a Hall of Shame video follow-up. And I am going to do top 10 videos. But it's not going to be for each year, and it's not going to be a 25 for the decade, because quite honestly, it's not fair. We're only halfway through the decade, and in one of those years, only 6 movies were released. So every year, we'll have a representative for the Hall of Shame. But I'm going to do a top 15 videos of the 2020s to make it a little more fair. And then I may do a special wrap-up video for this series and do a recap at the end of the year for anything that I have added since. But that will be the end of this series. So I hope you'll join me on that next one and the next couple of ones. And again, if you like this content, please give me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe. Most importantly, leave those comments below. And I can't wait to hear from you, and we'll see you on the next one.